Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 is the continuation of Senua's story after the first game. The first game came out back in 2017 and was an immersive, cinematic experience, so it's expected that this one is more of that. But let's take a look at the gameplay to find out how the sequel fares. To describe the gameplay, it is a puzzle game with combat delivered in a cinematic format. There are no button prompts to keep in line with the cinematic pursuit. And while there is visceral, weighty combat, the majority of the game entails taking in the environment and figuring out the pathway forward, usually through some sort of puzzle. That being said, also just like the first one, the environments are very immersive and lifelike in presentation. The dialogue between characters and Senua's inner dialogue with herself and the voices in her head are where the substance of the game truly is. Clearly, more focus is on the story being told, and the gameplay is an interactive way to present it and keep players engaged throughout. So why not go over the story? The story, of course, follows Senua. She is a warrior skilled in combat and battle-tested from the first game. Her people keep getting captured as slaves and taken north. The plan she devises is to get captured herself and then fight her way to whoever's in charge and put an end to things. However, she quickly finds out that there is more at play as to why the slaves are being captured. It is then up to you, as the player, to guide Senua and put a stop to things the proper way. Throughout the story, you will encounter other people, something that the first game lacked, some of which will join you on your journey. But of course, Senua is not cured of her psychosis, and the voices in her head are constantly commenting on everything, attempting to sway her conviction. Will it be a blessing or a quote-unquote curse, as so many in her life have called it? But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? So a question that a lot of people have been wondering about this game is Xbox going to close Ninja Theory now? Because this game didn't get a whole lot of players at launch, unfortunately. And when we saw Xbox, close the studio earlier this year, not too long ago, that actually did have players play their game and got awards and everything. And it's kind of worrying, because this game is kind of cool, at least in theory, but then you play it and you're kind of wondering, I feel like there's more gameplay that I could have gotten out of this experience, but they didn't deliver it to me.
Yeah, but even Xbox has even canceled studios that were even developing fan favorite games too. So we don't want to wish nothing on developers and studios to get closed down.
No,
but
definitely not.
But I definitely do agree with you though, Henrik. I mean, you do have a point, because Hellblade 2 is like a sibling trying to copy its older brother's cool dance moves. You might be at a wedding and you might try to one him up, at your cousin's event, but he just ends up tripping over its own feet. I mean, while it looks flashy, the gameplay, it does feel a bit repetitive. And the best way I can explain this to the gamers out there is, you ever try to explain to a non-gamer the plot of Metal Gear Solid, only to be like, not again, this is becoming so repetitive, like it's over and over and over again. And you would think that there would be like new charge features, different weapons to wield, and it just, you're right on what you're saying. It's more focused on the story and less on the gameplay. Is that a knock, Henrik? I'm curious on how you feel about that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the perspective you have on what you want out of a game. Like, if you want story first and foremost, and you don't care as much about the gameplay that's delivered to you, then sure. At that point, you're basically just playing an interactive movie, and this kind of is like, you could say 2 or 3 movies, because it's only about 5.5 hours long.
Yeah, which
I'd say
that's
is
disappointing.
A lot for $50 at that too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not what I was expecting them to do, considering, I did like the first game, but that is also from me getting the game for really inexpensive when it was already out for already a couple of years, playing through it, being like, this is really cool. Why didn't that many people play this? And then the sequel's coming out, and I'm like, oh, cool. What'll they do different? Well, they do some things different, but they don't do a whole lot different to make it feel like it's a true sequel, outside of, telling the story a little bit differently. But the gameplay itself is mostly the same.
Yeah, me personally, I would like to see a trilogy because I didn't really feel like as if I wanted to relive this experience again, but I did feel like the character was, when you're exploring, the different depths of mental health, that was quite intriguing. But I do have to
Yeah.
even crack this joke out, anyways. Like, you're right. I mean, if you want like a gripping, intense, movie like kind of style of game, Hellblade 2 might just be your ticket. This might be the kind of game that you might want. But wait, I thought that was a PlayStation thing, though, Henrik.
Yeah, no,
I thought,
exactly.
everybody would be clowning these kind of style of games, but then all of a
uh,
sudden, the minute Xbox wants to develop, a kind of like a Sony product of an exclusive game, then everybody all of a sudden completely shits on the bed. But I am with you, though. It does feel like it's a flashy car with the sputtering engine. While it looks impressive with the fidelity and the amazing graphics throughout, it just becomes as repetitive as rush hour traffic, right? I mean, you're going to be, left living out those long, road trips that just feel like I just want to go down a different route. Like,
yeah, I'd like there to be another game in this trilogy if they do decide to do a trilogy. But I don't know, with the way that this game, is faring at the launch and how Xbox is trying to cut corners on some stuff, I'm really worried for Ninja Theory because it's not looking good for them. And if they do get another chance, that's awesome because I think they have something that they could change in the trilogy. And I hope they do if they decide to make another game, actually make things different because that's probably part of why people didn't really gravitate to this
well,
game because you
they
can just watch someone play it and it's the same thing.
that's a good point too as well. You can jump on Twitch, you can jump on Kick, and you can go and not buy the game if you want to be that guy. That kind of seems pretty lame, right? Gamers,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm necessarily all for that, but you're right. I mean, you're following along to this story. You feel like you're watching a plant grow. It's slow and steady, but after a while, you're just staring at the same leaves, wondering when something exciting will happen, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't captivate you, but at the root of it all, the exploration and the combat feel as fresh as a reheated leftovers. I was
Oh,
craving something just a little bit more flavorful in my experience, Henrik. They
yeah. They don't
really,
have to go to like God of War levels of
yeah, no one's
combat.
asking for that.
No
Yeah.
one's asking. Yeah, no one's asking for that level of detail to the combat. But like, let me do a little bit more than just the basic combos and let me try to figure out how to do more flashy things maybe because yeah, I mean it's trying to go for the realism aspect of combat where you're stumbling and your opponent's stumbling and you hit them and they go stumbling and you get hit and you're
But I guess
but
it
at the
can,
same time like it's a game, you want to have some fun with it.
but I guess it can't be realism after all. If on the Xbox Series XS it's locked at 30 frames per second. Oh
I
man,
had
what
to
a
bring
what?
that up.
But talking about this whole like hands-on gameplay, you're pretty spot on. Any gamer that prefers this whole hand-on gameplay experience, you might want to wait for the game to drop in price, but if you're lucky and you've already got the Xbox Game Pass subscription, burning a hole in your wallet, or matter of fact, your pocket, yeah, it might not hurt to, just be able to check it out. It's almost like, finding the equivalent of like, finding, money, in the crack of your car seat. You might just want to might up picking it up and seeing if it can give you a go or not. But, I think it's pretty clear exactly what we're saying right now, Henrik. I'm going with the pause, but I do want to see this story be fleshed out a little bit better with a little bit more gameplay. But I'm not saying it's a bad story. I think the story is the best part about it. It's just not enough to make you want to go back and replay it again. Because once you've seen the story, you've seen the intense movie, you're like, okay, I've seen it. I don't need to revisit this thing anytime soon. But I want to hear from you, Henrik. I mean, what's your verdict? How are you feeling about Hellblade 2?
Yeah, it's a pause for me as well. I can't recommend it at full price to the majority of people at 5.5 hours length because that just seems like a lot.
Yeah,
And especially when there's other things out there on the market that are even, on the horizon that we'll talk about
yeah.
coming up this current month. Like I'd say wait for a sale on this one and spend the money on something else.
Yeah, it's almost like, you want to go to Disneyland, but you're waiting for the coupon to happen. Yeah, you want to go on those thrilling roller coasters for the first time, but it's also like going to the Haunted Mansion. I don't know about you guys, it's never been to Disneyland, but, the magic kind of goes away after you've been in it the first time, okay? You're not
Yeah,
going to get
yeah.
spooked. You're not going to get scared. None of that's going to happen. The nostalgia's there, but the repeat factor, I just don't quite know. But we want to hear from you gamers because this is Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show after all. And you, the gamers, are the ones that make this show happen. So let us know what's good. Is this a pause or a repeat?